Hello guys, thanks for joining us on the Tech Talk again. Hopefully you're finding these useful. Today we're going to be looking at the ILCA 7, formerly known as a laser. This is the men's Olympic class and probably one of the simpler Olympic boats and quite physical, but you'll see them in, I'd say, 90% of the yacht clubs around the world, and it's our biggest youth class in Ireland for single-handers anyway. And thought we'll look through the control lines, how to set the boat up, any common issues, so that really your time in the water is never going to be held back by the boat not being right, and you can spend all the time working on your actual sailing with the coach. Hopefully this is useful, and any questions please comment below and get in touch and we'll do our best to try and help you out. We're going to start with the obvious control lines of the ILCA. Is your kicker or vang if you're old school. You've got your downhaul, or again Cunningham, and on the far side of the boom we have the outhaul. With the Cunningham or downhaul, this boat's currently rigged with a 8-to-1 setup, so you know that with the 4 and doubled here going through the sail and back down. So you've got 8-to-1 purchase, which is probably what's recommended for most boats these days. This current one is rigged with the downhaul coming all the way down onto your same strop that holds the lower block. You can also attach it onto the top of the kicker if you like, and as you can see there's not a lot of height difference in it, so you don't actually need to change your strop. To rig the downhaul, it's fairly simple. You've got 5mm Dyneema through the sail coming down to a Harken 29 block and a Harken 18 block. You're coming from a spliced, ideally, block on a loop at the base of the mast, up through your 29, back through your block, back to the 29, down to your deck blocks and along to your cleat. And you can finish off with a chain or a loop as you prefer. With the kicker system, this has the new 2026 Harken kicker, which is quite a big upgrade actually from the old Harken kicker and even from the Ronstein kickers. It's got the lower unit, you've got the middle twisted twiddle block with the zircon bearings, and you've got the high-low 25 Harken fly with the new molded key, which doesn't fall out as easily. So a lot of people put electrical tape or bungee cord around the boom to secure the key. In theory you don't need it anymore, but probably still worth doing. The kicker's got 3, 4, or 5mm depending on who rigs it, and personal choice Dyneema for your primary control. It's in a 3-to-1, and then when you add up to your secondary control, in this case we've got the nice Amari Rope Lorenz line, which is in solid colour. Bit of personal preference really, but recommend a 4mm control line. And again, spliced nicely onto this block. Takes a bit of getting used to rigging so that you can actually see that none of the ropes touch or cross anywhere, thanks to the new Harken twiddle. And that comes back down to then again a choice of, I'd recommend usually a nice bit of pipe. Gives it nice easy to grab hold to when you've got the control on, and chuck it away. It has a bit of weight to it, so it actually holds the deck, you can reach for it easy. And then you've also got your tail, which is really handy to put back to the centerboard. So when you're fully hiking, it's easy to reach in, grab anywhere of the tail, work your way along and get a hold of the handle. So without having to come all the way in, you can keep hiking and play your controls, which is really important for the boat, especially things like windward and leeward mark roundings. We'll work our way around now to the outhaul. Again, you can have it rigged, all the blocks at the front to be a front setup, or you can have a mid-boom setup like this boat currently has. The outhaul is another one of the Harken 29 blocks on a strop, and it's using the center cleat so it doesn't slide aft. You got a Harken 29 to then a 3mm or 4mm Dyneema primary control coming to the back of the boat. Start looking at the back here. It's coming from your control line through the eye at the end of the boom, through either a hook, through the clew of the sail, or in this case a lashed on block, just to help with the purchase, and then fixing back onto this. Or again, in this case, it's got one of the loops that you go through the eye and around the end of the boom. If you are worried about it, you can put a bit of tape, but honestly, I've never had this fall off before. It's always under enough load, even in light winds. And the cool thing is when you want to disconnect it all, you just swipe this off the end of the boom and your out hole's free. Makes it much easier, handier de-rigging, especially windy days. Another top tip for out hole is on this primary line, there's a nice dog bone spliced into the line. That allows you to have a bit of bungee, which is fixed from the center point of the boom on the cleat, runs down under the boom, back up through the boom, through the clue of the sail, back under the boom, in this case up onto the thimble. So it keeps it nice and tight along the boom. But what it does is, when I let the out hole off, this block and this will never have any slack. The bungee is always going to take the length and slack out of the system, and the light winds actually helps pull your clue of your sail in on the boom, so you don't have to reach out and push the foot of the sail and try and get that depth that you want. Again, working along, you're onto one of the primary strops to the mast. Just simply flits around the mast, self-tightens. Out hole coming from your purchase, all the way to the front, through the block, to your deck cleat, through, again, any sort of compass bearing you may have, and through your deck cleats, and again, just a nice bowline. I have a Velocitech as a compass. You can have any sort of bracket. It doesn't interfere with your ropes, but one of the tips I would have for your centerboard bungee is I rig the bungee off the bottom blocks here, through a bit of Dyneema, and back to the other side. And what that does is it gives you plenty of purchase being doubled up to reach right back to your centerboard. But this Dyneema is really nice because it's thin enough to seep down between your cleats, and it doesn't try and then lift the board up when you're sailing upwind. And because this has gone through underneath, it doesn't come either side of this unit. It comes nicely through the middle, and you've got perfect centerboard control, not interfering with anything, upwind, downwind, perfect, ready to go. We come around then for the main sheet. It's simple enough. This is a 6mm specific rope designed for the laser with the Italian team, and it's actually a really nice main sheet. Super lightweight, doesn't absorb a lot of water for light winds, and doesn't tend to knot too much. I've put that knot in to demonstrate. But through the middle block, make sure you go through the strop, through your aft block, and then down onto your block on the deck and back up with a stopper knot. Really important not to tie a bowline onto the bottom of this bucket here, because you really want to make sure you can get block to block when you want to. So it's through here with a stopper knot. I always tie a bit of a slip knot so that coming into a windy, wavy slipway, I can get a hold of this, give it a yank, and I can undo the main sheet. But again, when you're sailing, plenty strong enough so we can get ourselves nicely down, block to block when we need to. Blocks are then attached onto your traveller. Super important to get a nice, hard, thin traveller, not big, thick rope. It wants to run really smooth. This is actually only 3-4mm, specifically designed for the laser traveller. Dyneema core with a Dyneema cover jacket. And it's so tight, can't even get a splice in. We've actually stitches it into a loop. You want to try and get this triangle A as small as you can, and tie a knot. Just a simple half hitch knot is plenty, so that whenever you bring it forward, you can get really tight. Because going upwind, you want this block to sit tight to the deck. You don't want to have any lift up. It wants to go all the way to the corner and tight. If I let the traveller off slightly and have it too loose, you can see how the block will always try and then drift up and never quite seat itself right out the corner, and you can't get block to block setting, and you can't get the boom out. So really important, traveller bar tight if you can. As well as being tight traveller, it's really important to get your tiller secured in the rudder as tight as you can. So in this case, it's in. There's actually purchase. You'll probably not be able to see, but in here there's another bit of a trucker's hitch. You can see in there. That comes back up, and you want to come up from below the tiller over the top to your middle cleat, somewhere on top of the boat or on top of the rudder, or tiller, somewhere on the side. If it's on the side, come from the opposite side through the cleat back to your little trucker's hitch, back to the cleat, and that gives you enough purchase to really get that nice and tight, and then just simply tie off your tail. You can either untie that then to come back ashore and lift your rudder up, or in a lot of cases people then keep the rudder complete. I actually keep mine solid like that, so that's tied in for the duration of the event. I simply, when I come near the slip, uncleat my traveller, so there's plenty of slack, but again with the knot, it's never going to come undone, and it's really easy then to pop your rudder off the transom and slide it onto your boat. Once it's out of there, I'm good on the trailer, give the traveller a wee nudge, and the nice big thick bolt here and everything makes it really snug, so it's not going to fall off when you're coming up the slipway. Recommend, if you get a boat from the factory, it usually comes with a nice padded tow strap, but there's not a lot of grip, so I recommend definitely get one of these ILCA tow straps. This happens to be one of the double thickness ones, kind of nice for an old boy like me to save the ankles a bit, but not necessary. One of the single ones is fine. Just the nice rubber grip underneath gives you a lot more locked in secure, so you can really get the kinetics going and the body movement through the boat, and also takes a little bit of your fatigue out of the hiking. When it comes to the back of the traveller, a lot of guys now have cleats. I'm still a bit old school and I rely on the friction, so it's a bowline through your tow strap, back through this eye, up to a trucker's hitch, and then back through the eye and through here. And actually what holds the whole thing is the fact that the rope here is getting pinned in here, so I'll do a better video at some point to describe it, but when I pull this line here, it's going to tighten the tow strap, and you can see that's pretty firm and secure, it's not going anywhere. When I want to loosen it, I can simply release the middle rope here like this, and now whenever I use the tow strap, it'll take the slack out and I can get it looser. So in the windy weather, looser tow strap gets your body a bit further out and helps you with the hiking. In the lighter wind or downwind, it's nice to be able to just reach back, give it a yank on, hence why it's on the starboard side of the boat. I go around the window mark on starboard, just as I'm rounding the mark or catch the first surf or two, reach back and give that a good yank on and get the tow strap nice and tight. This really lock me into the boat for the downwind. For your centerboard then, most boats will come with a friction plate here. Sometimes there's a little thin standard one. A lot come now with the bigger one. I recommend getting this. Just helps hold the board up. And at the front, just to save your boat and the board and all that chafing and scratching you get in the gel coat for both the board and the boat, you can get a bit of this Pro Grip. It's pretty easy to get anywhere, and just cut it to shape, stick it into the front of the groove, and that'll save your equipment but also give you a nice firm control that the board sits solid and doesn't rock around in the downwind. That combined with your bit of bungee then gives you a nice secure position to hold the board in any height you put it. I used to have a clip on mine, and I've actually changed it that I just have a little dog bone spliced into the end of this Dyneema, which is really nice because I can't get anything caught on it. Sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes if you clip, you could end up with your out hole or down hole or one of your control lines getting in. When you yank it on, it gets stuck in the clip and it's pretty annoying. And that's about it. You're supposed to have a mast tie down, which is pretty self-explanatory. It goes from the bottom deck block here up to your, uses basically the tying that holds the kicker on, stop the mast falling out when you go upside down. I do have one rigged when I'm racing, but for today, I need to make a new one. Don't know where it is. And that's it. A laser's a very simple boat, but being so simple, there's really no excuse not to make sure that everything's working perfectly. And I think you could count less than maybe a dozen blocks there and probably less than 20 meters of rope throughout a lot of it. So really not expensive and no excuse not to have your boat in top shape in terms of the control lines and blocks. The other bits to think about then, the only thing that gives you more gains are keeping the hull in good order, keeping it nice and shiny, give it a bit of a polish, make sure you rinse it well after sailing each time, and then making sure you're looking after your spars and all the rest of your equipment. Okay guys, thanks for watching, and hopefully that was useful.